Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're new to this series, I'm modifying this junkyard bike so that I can change the head tube and fork rake for testing purposes. I've completed the head tube angle and started the fork section in the last video. In this video, I'll finish the fork section. Doing a sketch for the adjustable fork rake. I'm drawing the two extensions which will connect to the jacking screw, and this is a side view. This is the second sketch. So the last sketch wasn't quite right. This one I'm addressing an issue with the jacking screw arms. In the last video they were at an angle. It's kind of hard to explain, but basically the jacking screw was pushing against itself and not really pushing the force on the arms in the proper way. So I'm addressing that here, and this new design is more like a scissor setup. What I'll do is take some cardboard and cut out templates for these brackets, and then I'll set them up on the actual fork and see what kind of angles I can get and make sure I have enough clearance. Okay, so I got the wheel and the tire on to test my clearances, and my original plan was to have this angling down, but I completely miscalculated how far up this tire goes. So what I need to do is flip it around, and then I also need to angle this plate up a bit so that I have enough clearance when I do that. And then the other thing I need to do is I need to machine this flat, because this square goes on here like that. Alright, so this is one of those situations where these are going to get welded on here, but before I weld this, I need to make the little bolt that goes in here. So that means I got to get these drilled and get the pivoting bolt machined on the lathe. So I'm going to turn this down. So the bolt will look something like this, and then there will be a threaded hole for the screw to go in. I need to turn this down to something like that. So before I turn down the bolt, I'll get these drilled so I can test these against the bolt. Alright, so next I need to drill a hole through this and then tap it so this bolt can thread in here. Alright, so there's the top assembly. So now I need to work on the bottom assembly. So this is the part that extends off the fork blades. These plates will be welded to the fork blade area, and it's a similar setup to the top, except the bolt is longer and I don't need to well, actually, I do need to tap the bolt, but the hole and taps are on the ends of the bolt because I'll use screws to attach the bolt to these plates. Here's that part, it's threaded. And so these will go on here like this. And then this bolt will come through here. Actually, let's put it on. Okay, so that's going to sit on there just like that. This bolt will come through here. So what I need to do with this bolt is, so my plan originally for this bolt was to have one of these nuts on here, and I was going to have a nut on both sides like this, kind of like on either end. The nuts were going to just kind of hold it in there, and then this would screw like this, and it would essentially push this up and down. The problem with this is this nut is, I lose clearance with this nut because these are coming like this, and they'll get really close, and this nut will get squeezed between these two sides here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to eliminate the bolt on this side. Actually, I'm eliminating both bolts, and then I'll turn down, maybe take about 1.5 mil or something like that, not too much because I want to keep some material down here. I'll turn that down, and then this will go through a hole, and then I will make a little cap which goes on the end here, and so I'll get more clearance on both sides. And for the cap, I will I'll weld that in there. So once this is on there, it's on there. So for that to happen, I'm going to need to machine a flat on this side and this side. So I managed to find this little fixture, and this fits on here, and that will help me index for when I machine a flat. So I'll index that side, and then this will help me index the other side. Here's that part I just milled down. I took it off the mill and forgot that I actually need to drill a hole, but luckily it's indexed, so I can just throw it back on and it'll be in the right place. There's something I need to do first, and that is I need to drill this, so I'll make my life easy. I'll pick a drill for this right now. Okay, I'm gonna go with K, and so this is 7.07. I'm going to drill this hole here, and then that means I got to turn this down till it fits in there nice and snug. Alright guys, now I got something to test against. So I'm going to turn this down till it fits in here. You guys wanted more rabbits, so I got this guy the other day. I think that's the same one from a few videos back, but I don't see the babies. I don't know where they are. We haven't seen the babies recently, so maybe they moved out. Okay, I got the parts all ready to go. Now I'm gonna tack these on here. I'm gonna tack this guy onto here. Pretty much get everything tacked on so that I can put it together and test it out and make sure all my clearances are good and it's functioning. I had a relief right here and I forgot that was there, and I was welding and I kind of blew a hole right around here somewhere, and so I had to go in and carefully stitch up these reliefs. Here's the other side, and I I did that off camera because it was pretty scary. Here's the underside. And then the back side, or bottom side. And so now there's plates that go on here. So these plates need to go on like that. And before I do that, I gotta grind these bits down to flatten this out again, here and here. Alright, so we're just about done here. All that's left to do is to weld this little collar on here. That's a stopper so that when I turn this it pushes and it'll also pull. And then I need to weld this nut on here, right about somewhere about here, and cut this end off. I did that the other day, and my arm was against the table, and I had short sleeves on and gave myself a nice shock. So that's why you're supposed to wear clothing on your arms, and long sleeve shirt and fireproof stuff, no nylon. But when it's really hot out and it's hot in the shop, we've all done it. Just a tiny little problem here. We get the bottom cup here is scraping along this arm. So I think the easiest way to deal with this is to turn this edge down on the lathe. I don't need the full length of this cup. So I'm noticing the tool is not doing much. It's a high-speed steel. And I suspected that the cup was hardened steel, which was kind of surprising to me. I didn't know these things were hardened, but I guess it makes sense because it's for bearings, so it makes perfect sense. So just testing that out with the file, and of course the file is just gliding across and not biting in, so gonna have to grind this down. It did occur to me later, and you'll see later in the video, that I could have used carbide, but I didn't have any carbide tools, just a carbide boring bar. Hey everyone, so I was having issues with my lav mic. It was plugged into the wrong input and it was clipping a lot, especially this clip. So there's just one more thing we need to do here, and it's based on a comment from one of you guys. The suggestion was to make the axle to crown height adjustable. I thought it was a great idea, especially after all the work that's been done. So when the head tube, angle, and fork rake are extended and the axle to crown height is lower, to compensate for that, I'll add a few collars on either end of the steerer tube, and that will allow me to clamp down to different steerer tube positions. This should allow me to change the axle to crown height. So I was all set up to make a collar for the steerer tube. I had my stock, my tap, drills, and then the evening was ended, so I stopped for the night. The next day, I thought that's a little crazy and it's a lot of work. So I looked through my junk and I found this this old BMXC tube, and it fits on here pretty well. And then I found some seat clamps, and so this seat clamp fits here perfectly. I'm gonna use this as a bushing, and then the seat clamp will go on here, and then it'll slide on here, and that'll be my bottom collar. And then I only had one of these, so I went to the bike shop and they gave me this. Not quite the right size, it's 31.4, but the flange actually fits okay. So this can be fine for the top. I don't need it to be perfect. The collars are all done and working as they should. So I'll be able to adjust the top collar and the bottom collar. So the last step here is to extend the steerer tube, and that'll allow me to drop, or rather in this case, raise the crown, which gives me more axle to crown distance. I need to make a jig to hold these tubes in line while I weld it. I was going to use this extrusion, which is 40 by 20, but I want a little more rigidity. I had this lying around. It's 40 by 40. I'll use this instead, but it's too long, so I need to cut it down to size. So the top bearing race will not fit on here because it's threaded and it's made to thread on. So the material's too hard to machine down, so I'm going to need to get in there with So I ended up using a boring bar with a carbide insert, and that worked fine. Okay guys, that's all for this video. In the next video, we're gonna have the big test. I'm gonna ride this thing and we're gonna do all different sorts of configurations, and I'll let you know how it feels and rides, and yeah, until then, I'll see you in the next one.